Grace be to you and peace from God, our Creator, Redeemer, and life-giving Spirit. Amen. Have you ever noticed that American television and probably TV shows around the world are obsessed with competition? Although I'm not a baseball fan, I can imagine what the ratings will be like when whoever wins the NLCS, which I actually had to look up on Wikipedia because I didn't know what it was, but whenever those two winning teams get to play in the World Series, it's going to be big, I know. But even that title, World Series, suggests a rather narrow view of the world because it's not really an international competition like the Olympics. It's basically two teams from the United States. Shows you what our world is like. And the focus is on who will be number one, which is going to be the best baseball team. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing per se that's wrong with competition, and those of you who know me well know that I have a bit of a competitive spirit myself. But our culture is obsessed with competition, and it's mirrored by TV shows. Just think of some of them. Top Chef, Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, American Ninja Warrior. Even though the genres are different, everyone has the focus on winning, on being the best, on being top dog. And obviously, this is not just an American phenomenon. There's something in the human psyche that seems to revel in being number one. Now, maybe the seeds are sown when we come out of the womb crying for attention, and I have surely seen this with my little Elliot. But then with each successive age, the focus shifts, but it's still about me. So the 2-year-olds have meltdowns because they can't have what they want. I'm sure you've seen that. And then the 10-year-olds shout shotgun as soon as they get in the car so that they can have the front passenger seat. And then the teenagers fight over who's going to get the keys for the car so that they can go to the mall. Our culture teaches that me coming first is really what it's all about, that we have to look out for number one. But it's pretty clear from our gospel lesson that this notion of being numero uno is not new. This condition gets even worse when you think about what happened right before our gospel lesson for today. Jesus and the disciples are on their way to Jerusalem, where Jesus will be killed. And for the third time, he tells his disciples what's in store for him. He takes the 12 aside and he says, the Son of Man is going up to Jerusalem where he will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes. They will condemn him to death. They will hand him over. They will mock him, spit on him, flog him, betray him, and kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise again. He just said that to the disciples, literally. And then come James and John. They're at it again. You remember James and John, the sons of Zebedee. They're the ones that in chapter 1 left their father in the boat so that they could get out of the boat and follow Jesus. So right after Jesus has said to them, I'm going to die, James and John go up to Jesus and say, Teacher, we want you to do anything we ask of you. Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left when you come in your glory. It's almost as if Jesus hadn't said a word. Or maybe they hadn't heard it. Maybe there was too much noise on the side of the road. Or maybe they were thinking about what they wanted to say to Jesus and they just couldn't multitask so well. Regardless, though, when these disciples came up to Jesus to ask him if they could be his right hand and left hand men when he came into his glory, I'll tell you, if I were Jesus, I would have been dumbfounded, and I would have been angry, and I would have been hurt. You've got to be kidding me. I just told you that I'm going to die, that the worst kind of brutality and death is going to happen, and all you can think about is yourselves? All you can think about is being my chief assistants when I become the heavenly king? Get out of my face. I can't even look at you right now. That's what I would have said if I were Jesus. Maybe some of you would have too. I don't know. But Jesus' response is so calm, so clear. He simply asked them a question. Are you able to drink the cup that I'm going to drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? In other words, Jesus says, are you able to undergo the fate that I'm about to undergo? Sure. They respond, no problem. We are able. Well, these two brothers do not have a clue. They don't have a clue. So Jesus goes on, my fate will indeed be your fate, but to be my chief assistants in the kingdom, to ride shotgun in God's front seat, is not mine to give. It's God's choice. Well, when the other disciples hear what James and John are talking to Jesus about, they get furious. How dare they talk to Jesus about being his right and left-hand men? Don't they know that Peter is the honcho disciple? Where do they get off trying to be top dog? This argument over power and position, it wasn't flattering for Jesus' first century disciples, and it isn't for us either. When we vie for power and prestige, either in the church or in society, this is not the way of Jesus. So Jesus uses this as a teachable moment. He says to them, you know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them and act like tyrants. But it is not so among you. In those 7 small words, it is not so among you. Jesus once and for all time defines the character of what the ministry of his followers should be. Jesus didn't say, it will not be so among you. He didn't say it shouldn't be so among you, or I'd rather it not be so among you. Jesus used a present tense word that has a continuing effect. He says, it will not be so among you. My people, says Jesus, are different from the world. We don't act the same way as tyrants do. We don't understand power to be power over people, but power with people. We're not concerned about who's the top dog because we care for the underdog. We don't compete to see who gets kicked out. We work hard to make sure that everybody is included in God's family. Everybody. It is not so among you. You don't act like the rest of the world, says Jesus. You follow me. And then to make sure that they understood exactly what he was talking about, Jesus talked about servanthood. Whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. When I was a kid, we learned this song about servanthood, about consecration. I am thine, O Lord, I have heard thy voice, and it told thy love to me. But I long to rise in the arms of faith and be closer drawn to thee. Consecrate me now to thy service, Lord. by the power of grace divine. Let my soul look up with a steadfast hope, and my will be lost in thine. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to thy precious bleeding side. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Could there be any better text for us today? As we commit ourselves to being servants, Jesus says, "It is not so among you, for how you act is a reflection on me." Jesus came to give his life, and can we do any less, brothers and sisters? Can we do any less than give our whole selves? Jesus wants our lives, our bodies, our souls, our minds, and he wants our wallets. He wants our faith to be connected to our money through our service. It's an invisible thread. So, today Jesus is asking us to make a pledge, that we will give our lives to the gospel, that we will commit ourselves to being faithful followers so that the world may know God's love, so that God's mission may flourish, so that God's mission and our money will be connected. Let's take not the plunge today. Let's take the pledge so that Jesus will be served in the world. Amen.